Today, we become legends.
Here are the top 3 gods for every conquest role to carry your ranked and casual games in 11.4. Let's jump right in. So first up we have the solo laners, where my first pick is one that's been around for a while, and that's of course Bellona. She's been strong for ages now and only got stronger with the addition of Equinox this patch. That item is pretty damn broken and Bellona is one of the best users of it. Expected to get nerfed, but even without Equinox, Bellona was still one of the top solo laners for a long time. She wins lane insanely hard, and with all the neutral farm available in solo and teleporters making rotations easier, she can build a lead quickly and leverage it with ease. Definitely one of the top solo laners at the moment. Next up is a new face after a round of changes last patch, and that's Odin. This guy is just straight up unkillable with a tank build and max CDR. Constant shields, constant jumps, quicker access to his stun, and of course the cage, which actually has really good meta matchups at the moment, with him forcing a lot of gods to burn their ultimate to escape, and even some top meta gods like AMC just having no way out of the cage without Phantom Shell. His damage is insane and he's unkillable with the right build. Definitely a top solo. And finally, my third pick for solo is Wukong, who is also pretty unkillable when played right due to his 3 ultimate and long range poke in his 1. His damage potential is also a lot higher than most solo laners, since you can get away with going stuff like Jotuns, Soul Eater, maybe even a Heartseeker, and still have enough inherent survivability to dive the backline in fights. He's definitely a step down from Bellona and Odin in my opinion, but still an amazing solo laner for patch 11.4. But moving on, let's talk about some mid laners where we've seen the infestation of hunter mids take over the role recently. Before we get into that though, my first mid is actually a mage, and that's Doth. He's one of the few mages that have truly been standing up to the hunters in the mid lane at the moment, arguably even outclassing them to a certain point due to his insane damage. His 1 practically has no cooldown and infinite range, making him surprisingly safe in fights given he can sit further back than other mages and still pump out great damage. And of course his ult with Staff of Mirrodin has some of the highest one-shot potential of any ability in the game. He's been strong for a while and remains so in 11.4. Moving on though, AMC takes my second spot as the premier hunter mid at the moment. These picks did take some nerfs this patch, but I still believe AMC is one of the best mid laners in the game. He wins the 1v1 against basically any mage, is surprisingly safe given he has no traditional dash or jump, and has the added benefit of excellent tower and objective shred come late game that mages don't offer. Of course the trade-off there is objective secure, which AMC doesn't really have that well, but it's worth it in my opinion. The physical ability based builds are just so strong at the moment with items like Fail Not and Heartseeker that is pushing AMC over the edge into being a top mid laner at 11.4. And finally, for the third spot, I was struggling to pick between Neith for very similar reasons to AMC. The buffs have added up over time and the build is just insane, but ultimately I decided to go with Agni for the third slot. He was already a very strong pick before he got his buff to his ultimate, and I think that tipped him over the edge into being an insane mid laner this patch. His total damage output is absurd, with his ult alone basically being able to one-cycle backliners. As I said, it was a hard choice between him and Neith, and I think you can't go wrong with her either, but I went with Agni for the actual slot. But moving on, let's talk about some junglers, where my first pick is probably no surprise to anyone. Yeah, Thanatos is still a top jungler. His nerfs have been quite substantial, and I do think he's actually fallen off quite a bit, but the nerfs basically took him from uncontested best jungler, hell, maybe even straight up best god in the game, down to just being in contention for top jungler after the nerfs. That said, Thana still does Thana things, and while he might have lost a bit of damage or movement speed here or there, he's still one of the best hard carry junglers there is, and you can't go wrong with picking him, if he's not banned, of course. My second pick is another familiar face with a semi-global, and that's Thor. He remains super strong this patch, and he hasn't really taken any additional nerfs beyond the slight increase to his 1's cooldown in 11.2. He still one-shots you if you don't have beads from his ultimate and half healths you from a safe distance with stun double tap. He abuses the 100% power scaling on physical autos to great effect. He's still a top jungler in 11.4. Enough said. And finally, my third pick had a bit more contention with the likes of Alquang and Awilix doing really well at the moment, but ultimately I went with the safe pick of Susano, who's been strong for a long time and also abuses the 100% power scaling of basic attacks to the extreme. This isn't going to be a rant on how they should nerf physical basic attack scaling because it's probably too late in Smite's life cycle to do such a change, but with how high power builds have gotten over time, it means Susano's damage output is just completely insane via AA cancels through the rest of his kit. He can be a little harder to play correctly compared to Thanatos or Thor, but if you can play him well, you can't go wrong picking him right now. He's insanely strong. Next up though, supports, where not much has changed since last time. Athena remains dominant, though like Thanatos, I think the nerfs have had an impact on her, and she's no longer completely uncontested best support in the game. She is definitely still up there though. Global presence, beads or die taunt, you all know Athena. She's been dominating the meta for months and she remains that way in 11.4. Next up is Ares, who similarly has been dominant basically since his spicy changes a while back. If you're looking for an aggressive hard carry support, then Ares is your man. He can pretty much solo backliners throughout the early and mid game and can snowball to an easy win more effectively than any other support in the game. You all know him and he remains strong in 11.4. The third slot, however, was a little more contested with quite a few picks that could be considered top 3 at the moment. Kuzenbo is super strong, Yamoje is as insane as ever if you can play her well, but ultimately I went with Charon for this list as this guy just never seems to give up his stranglehold on the win rate stats. Win rates aren't everything, but this god is clearly too strong and previously had the absolute highest win rate in the game, and even after the nerfs he's still up there. His damage potential is higher than most, his CC is solid, he has built-in shielding, extra max health for free, global ultimate. There's pretty much nothing Charon doesn't do, and he's an extremely well-rounded support pick at the moment. But finally, let's talk about some ADCs, where I will first mention that AMC and Neith can absolutely be played in ADC to great effect, but they won't be taking a spot for this list due to them having more presence in mid. But keep in mind that they are arguably still top 3 for the ADC role as well, and you can't go wrong picking them. First up for my actual picks though, we have Anhur, who's consistently been near the top of the ADC meta for quite a while now. His early pressure and 1v1 potential make him an extremely scary lane opponent, and he can easily translate that lead that he gets in lane into teamfights where he abuses the current broken ADC builds just as well as any other. Next up is another familiar face in Hachiman, who's been quite strong for us a long time after his major changes last season. Great 1v1 potential, fairly safe, good in teamfights. Hachiman is just a very well-rounded ADC kit that is a great vessel for building the current items and shredding everything in sight. You all know him, he's been on top for a long time, and while he has fallen off a little bit, he remains top 3 in my eyes. And finally, my third spot is taken by the new kid on the block. I do firmly believe Nut is insane right now and definitely deserving of a top 3 placement. Her damage feels pretty much unparalleled, especially in the late game once her 1 truly comes online with near infinite ammo. Her ultimate is one of the better ones for making a huge impact in late game teamfights. The one thing Nut has going against her is that she's not that safe, given her ultimate makes her a sitting duck and her blink is very short distance. But if you can work around that, her damage output is in a class of its own right now. But that's all I've got for the top 3 gods for every role in patch 11.4. What do you think? Did I miss some sleeper OP picks that you think are top 3? Let me know down below and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.